Hello Radix community, this is Matthew Hine, the head of product at Radix DLT. This video is a walkthrough tutorial on sideloading the Radix Ledger app onto a Ledger Nano S device. This is something that I know many of you are very interested in. We've got a documented walkthrough of this that we're putting on our technical documentation site, but we also wanted to provide this video demo so you can see what the actual experience of going through this looks like, because it is a little bit complicated. So as many of you are aware, we're currently working with Ledger HQ, the creators of the Ledger Nano device, to get placement of our Radix Ledger app onto the Ledger Live store and on their manager, which would allow you to very easily load the Radix app onto your device. But until then, the normal process is that really the only way of getting it on there is to sideload. What sideloading means is you're going to be downloading the source code for the app onto your own computer, and then from there directly loading it onto the device via USB. So this is a very safe process, but it's a little bit on the complicated side because it means you're going to have to get into some basically developer-oriented tools. You're going to have to do some work at the command line, install some developers tools that allows you to use something called Ledger Blue, which is a tool that Ledger themselves provide for doing this sideloading. Something else to be aware of is that we've written instructions that I'm going to be doing this demo on Mac OS. The reason for that is that Ledger, the tool they provide, is designed for Unix-based operating systems, which basically means either Mac OS or Linux. We thought Mac OS was going to be the more popular and accessible choice for this. Unfortunately, what this means is if you're a Windows user, you're going to have to do this one-time process by borrowing a friend or a relative's Mac laptop. Pretty much any Mac laptop should do. Pretty much any OS should work as long as it's as a Mac. Once you do this one-time process that I'm going to lead you through here, you'll have the app on the device itself. Then you can take that back to your Windows machine and you can use it with the Windows version of the Radix desktop wallet. So we hope that isn't too much of a problem for those of you that want to get a really quick start on getting the app onto your device for the mainnet launch. So I'm going to dig in here. I'm going to make my face a little bit smaller, and I'm going to show you exactly what you're going to be seeing as you go through this install process. So I've got the web page on our technical documentation site loaded up here. Very important to make sure that you're only following instructions and only doing downloads for your Ledger from our own website. If someone sends you a link on Telegram or on someplace else on social media, be very suspicious of that because someone can load something malicious onto your device. So you'll see here this is a valid one of our own domain names, docs.radixdlt.com, and this URL for the sideload process that I'm going to go through here. So I'm going to take this window off to the side a little bit to make a bit more room for what I'm going to be doing. And I'm just going to go through this step by step. So this is a fresh machine. This hasn't been set up for any developers tools. If you are doing a machine that already has some developers tools, this might be a little bit different, but I'm assuming if you've got developers tools, you kind of understand how this stuff works. You should still be able to follow it. Before you get started, before you do this process, one thing to be aware of is doing a little bit of setup on the device so it's ready to go. You're going to want to start by installing and setting up the Ledger Live desktop application. You can do that on your own machine. If you're going to be using a different Mac for doing this part of the process, this is just getting your device set up, so you can do this on your Windows machine or whatever. Install the Ledger Live desktop app, initialize the device, so this means getting your seed phrase, setting up your PIN, doing all those normal things for getting a Ledger Nano S working. And then you can use the Ledger Live app to check the firmware version of this. You plug this in, go to the manager, the instructions are on the dock here. Basically, you need to make sure that you're on the 2.0.0 at least, or later if they come out with another version, firmware of this. That's required for the Radix app. It won't install on versions previous to 2.0.0. Okay. You may also install the Radix desktop wallet, so after you're done with this, again, the desktop wallet is something you can run on your own machine. I've installed it here on this machine, so I can just show you how it works at the end of this demo. Okay, so let's get started. What we're going to be doing is doing a lot of command line arguments, but actually before we start with that, there's a little bit of preparation to do. So first thing to do here is to open the Finder. Oh, and I'll make this note here. If you have installed Ledger Live, be sure that it is closed on the machine that you're doing the install on. If Ledger Live is running, it's going to interfere with the process and it's going to fail. You don't need Ledger Live at all for doing this sideload. Just have the device ready. Okay. So first thing we're going to be doing is opening the Finder. Finder is the little happy face icon here for Mac. And let me put this off to the side so we can see the instructions. We'll be going to the Go menu up here and going Home. So now what you're seeing is your Home menu on your Mac laptop or your computer. We're going to create a folder here. So go to New Folder and name this Radix. Capital R, lowercase the other letters. Has to be like this. Don't do all caps, don't do all lowercase. The process is going to assume that you have a folder named exactly like this. Okay. Next thing to do is to click the link that's included in the document. This is going to download the source code for the Radix Ledger app. And again, very important to only download links from this website. So I'm going to follow that link. It's going to download this zip file. You can just click this here, or you can go to your downloads folder and find it there and double click it to open it. And inside here is a bunch of source code stuff. You're not going to have to mess around in there. All you need is the folder. And what you're going to do is drag that folder to the Radix, Radix folder that you just created. And then you may want to go in there, just make sure that you have an app-radix folder inside there. So in your home folder, Radix folder, app-radix inside that. Okay, now you're ready to go. We can close that. All right, so next thing to do, I'm going to close the Finder. We're not going to need this from here on. Is in Spotlight, which is this little magnifying glass icon up here. This will help you launch applications. If you type in terminal, that is an application that is installed on all Macs. This is your command line. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger too so we can see what's going on. So this is just kind of a blank window. What we're going to be doing is copying commands from this document and pasting them in here. And when you enter commands, you're going to be entering them at here, which is this thing called the prompt. We're going to be watching through this prompt throughout the document here, throughout the video. That prompt means terminal is basically ready to receive your input, so you can start typing stuff in there. This one is the particular laptop and username on here. Yours is going to look different. It'll probably be like your computer name, and it'll say your username here, and then it'll have some kind of little symbol at the end of it with the block. So I'm going to skip down here. We've got a little test that you can run here on the document to make sure that you know how the command works. In fact, I'll just do that real quick. We're going to be copying text out of these boxes. You can do that by hovering over the box and clicking this little clipboard icon in the upper right. So for example, if we click this command and I go over here and I go to paste, it copies. You can see that I've copied exactly the same command of that box, double checking that's the case, and then I go over to terminal and hit return. And you can see that this terminal command, all it does is just print out the message hello. So let's start doing some real stuff. All right, first command we're going to have to do is this one. I'm going to again go over here, copy that text out of here, paste it over here. I just use the keyboard shortcut Command V, but it's the same thing as doing paste here. Again, double checking that that looks the same. Yep, that's the same stuff, and I can hit return. So what this is going to do is install something called Homebrew. Homebrew is a developer's tool that's going to make it much easier for us to install some other command line tools that are required for the side loading application. So first thing this is going to do is it's going to ask me for my password. The password it's looking for is your computer system password. So this is the password you use when you first turn on your computer and it asks you to log in. It's that computer password. So I'm going to go ahead and type mine here. You're not going to see anything come up, but it is receiving it. Hit return, and everything is good. What you're going to see on here may be slightly different depending on the version of macOS you're running on. So it's not going to be exactly the same, but there's some pretty similar steps in here. I think pretty much for everyone, you're going to see this thing where you need to press return to continue. So if you see that, hit return. During this process, there may be other things as well. It might come up and ask you for your password a second time. If so, you'll just need to enter that. I think that's the only thing that may happen in here. This is going to take a while. So this is now downloading these developers tools directly. So the computer needs to be connected to the internet, hopefully on a pretty fast connection if you've got one, because it's pretty big. So I'm going to just kind of fast forward the video a little bit here and get to the points where it's asking me for some input. Here it's proceeding on, so it's now downloading some command line tools. That's good. And what we're waiting for is either asking for input, like entering a password, or if it finishes off, it's going to return you back to that prompt again, that little thing with your name and your computer name and user. So I'm going to go through this. I'm going to fast forward a little bit and get to that point where we can go on to the next step. Okay, we've now gotten back to our command prompt here. So it didn't ask me for my password a second time. That's fine. That may happen for you as well. Didn't ask me for any other confirmations. It just returned me back to my command prompt. So I'm ready for the next step. One thing I'll mention you'll see in the instructions here is that when you get to the end of this homebrew step, it's possible, again, depending on your operating system, you might see a message near the bottom here saying that suggesting that you might want to run these commands, one starting with echo, one starting with eval. If you see some commands that are kind of like this, you'll need to pay attention to this box and do another couple of steps in here. The operating system I was on didn't require it, so not an issue, so I'm just going to move on. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is to install Python. So some of you might be familiar with Python is a really common scripting language. Again, this is something that's used by the ledger sideload instructions or process. So I'm going to go ahead and install that. So once again, I will paste that command in here, double checking that that's the same thing I see. That's good. Hit return. This one also might take a couple minutes depending on your internet connection, depending on your computer speed and some things like that. We'll see how long it takes on this machine, but it seems to be moving along pretty quickly. But I might fast forward a little bit here. It seems like it's going to take at least a little bit of time. Okay, that took a little while, but we're now back with Python installed. We're back at our command prompt again, so we're ready to go in the next stop. We're going to install a few other little dependencies here. These should be much faster, so I will paste these in again. That matches that box well. We go. Okay, that's finished. Okay. Now let's go on to this step. So now we're going to install something called Virtualenv. It allows us to create a little virtual environment that we're going to do the install from to the ledger device. So once again, I copy this, go over here, paste it in. Looks good. That's a very quick one. You might see these warnings at the end. This is normal. Every time we've done this, it includes those warnings, and they're totally normal. This is basically just warning you that it's a path thing. Basically, this is something that a developer would worry about, but it doesn't actually change the functionality of anything. So we can move on now to using that virtual environment. So we're going to copy this Python command, paste that in. Looks good. So this is now going to be creating the virtual environment within that Radix folder we created earlier. So all the files for this are going to be in that Radix folder. And in fact, after you do the install, if you're borrowing a computer from someone else, if they want to delete that Radix folder, that's perfectly fine. You can come back if you need to update this or uninstall the thing. You can do this process again. Otherwise, you might want to leave it in place. Okay. So that finished pretty quickly. Now we're going to do this one. This source command is going to go into that virtual environment. So we're getting very close to the actual install here. So we're now in this little Radix environment that we've created. And we can go down to now installing the Ledger Blue application. So this is the thing I mentioned all the way back at the beginning. This is the command line tool that Ledger provides for doing these sideload installs. So we're going to download it, install that. Again, checking our command line argument. And that's looking good. Once again, you can ignore this warning about old versions. We're all already on the version that we need. No problem there. Okay, so now we're going to put this command, which just changes directory to the source code that we earlier installed on the computer. And now we're finally at the point where we're ready to do the side load. Okay, so what you're going to want to do now is to connect the ledger device itself. So I'm going to do that here. In fact, let me increase the size a little bit. So I've got my ledger device here. I'm going to plug that in. See, it's booting up. All right, now it's asking for my PIN. You're going to want to enter that PIN. I'm going to do that now. Okay. It's now accepted my PIN. Don't do anything. Don't launch any application. So after you enter your PIN, if you've used Ledger, you're going to see it'll take you to your application screen. So I've got an Ethereum application on here. Well, I've got some other apps on here. Don't launch any of those. Just leave it at that application screen. We just need to have it connected and have your PIN entered so we can do the next step. Okay. And once again, you've probably already done this, but make sure the Ledger Live application is not open because that will interfere with this step. So we're now ready to do the install. So this big box, this is probably the scariest looking one. This is the command that's actually using the Ledger Blue application to load in the software that we've downloaded earlier and get that onto the device. So we're going to copy that, shrink myself back down, paste in here. So you're going to see this big mess of command here. So once again, good to double check all this. So it starts with Python. You can see I've got Python here right at the beginning of my command prompt, and then all these different lines all the way down to this root private key. By the way, that root private key, this is not an address key or anything like that. It's basically just a signing key that's used for the install process that we provide. It's not something you need to worry about. Okay, so where do you go? Once again, hit enter. And now we're going to start the install process itself. Okay, so now you're going to start seeing things on the Ledger screen itself. You have to do some confirmations and some review steps on the device. So the first thing that you're going to see is this, and I'll see if it's possible for me to, let me increase the size here again a little bit so maybe you can see. So, can we get a focus here? There you go. Deny unsafe manager is the first thing it says here. So it sounds a little bit concerning. What this is just your Ledger being extra safe about the fact that if you're doing a sideload process, you're taking responsibility for what you're loading onto the device. So again, it's basically warning you if you downloaded some random Ledger app from a website somewhere, it's just warning you, hey, this hasn't been reviewed by Ledger. We can't say anything about it. You're taking responsibility for what you're doing. So obviously we know what we're doing here. You've downloaded the software directly from Radix. You've been following our process, so we know what we're installing. So what you're going to do now is use the right button on the device to click through some screens. I'll just leave this bigger so you can see here. So you're going to see, as you can see here, a public key. So there's 9 screens of that public key. You're just going to scroll past that. Then finally you get to allow unsafe manager, which you can see here. Maybe allow us to save manager. Okay, so I'm going to push both buttons to confirm that. And now you're going to start loading. So you're going to see this little progress bar going. On the terminal over there, you can see that there's a broken certificate chain. Again, that's not something to worry about. That's normal. And now we're going to get back to a screen that says to install Radix. So we're now going to scroll through a few more screens here. Let me go down to catch up the instructions. So here's where we're at. So we're going to go through the version, we're going to go through this identifier, go through a code identifier, and then finally we'll get to something that says perform installation. And I'm going to push the buttons to do that. So it's going to ask me for my PIN again. I'm going to enter that PIN. Very good. And now we're done. We just completed it. So you see we've returned back to the prompt here. And now what I can do on my device is I'm going to scroll over here. I'm back to the main menu. And if I hit the right button a couple of times, you can now see that I have, if I can get a focus here. My camera is so excited about this, it's forgotten to focus. Come on, buddy. Well, rest assured there's a Radix app there. I'm going to execute that Radix app. And now what it's going to say is is this app is not genuine. Again, this is an artifact of the sideloading process. So because the app didn't get loaded through the Ledger Live application, it's saying, the ledger is saying, look, this hasn't been approved by them. I can't say anything about it. So again, we know what we've done here. So we can scroll to the right and you'll get to something that says open application. You can go ahead and do that. And then it'll say Radix is ready. Let's see if this works. Camera is now completely refusing. But once you get to that Radix is ready screen, this means it's now ready for connecting to the Radix desktop wallet. You finished the installation now, so in fact, you didn't even do the launch. This is just confirming everything is working okay. At this point, if you're borrowing someone else's Mac, you can now hand it back to them. You say, you know, I'm done with what you're doing here. You can close the terminal window. This is all fine. And you can go back to your Windows machine or whatever your home machine is, and now the app will stay loaded on your ledger and you can connect it to the desktop wallet. In fact, I'm going to do that really quickly just to show you the last step here. I've already installed the desktop wallet on this computer, and I've already gotten it open, so I've got 500 tokens in here. I've created a couple of accounts here already. This is a version. This is currently on StokeNet, so you see I've got StokeNet addresses here on mainnet. These will be RDX addresses rather than TDX addresses, but the process is exactly the same. So I'll show you what it looks like to connect the ledger to the desktop wallet. So once again, if you're starting fresh, you're going to need to connect the device, enter your PIN, go to the Radix app, open that, and accept that little warning that it gives you about the thing, and then it'll say Radix is ready. So once you've done that, you can go to the account screen here, and you'll see that there's now an Add Hardware Wallet button down here. So once again, please ensure your ledger is connected and the Radix application is selected. Hit that button and it will start deriving the account. So what this means is the private key for this account is held on the device itself. It never goes to software. So what it has to do is basically request the hardware device to say, give me the key that I'm going to use to derive the Radix account that you're going to be able to actually do transactions with. So you'll see a derive account message on the screen. You scroll over through your address and then hit approve. And now you can see that hardware wallet is selected. You can select this just like all the other addresses. So you can go back to your regular software wallet accounts. These are the ones that are built into the desktop wallet where the private key is held on in the desktop itself. And if you ever want to do something with the hardware wallet, you can go down here. This currently has no tokens in it, so let's change that fact. So what I'm going to do is use this copy button here. In fact, why don't I open this screen so you can see everything. So all these addresses, you can copy the address for something. So I'm going to click this one. The hardware wallet operates a little bit differently. It says verify hardware wallet address. So in this case, this gives you the opportunity. You can just copy this right away if you want, or it'll show on the device verify address. The nice thing about this is you can scroll through and make sure that what you're seeing on your screen matches what the device tells you. What that means is that the software isn't cheating. It's not getting something wrong. You're about to copy the real address that the ledger thinks is the correct one. So you can go over here and you can approve that if you like. And copy the address, hit done. And now I'll go back to my account one, go to send tokens, paste that address in here. That's my ledger address. I'm going to send 10 tokens to that address. In fact, why not even send a message? Now I'm going to enter my secret PIN. There we go. Sent a transaction. Now I can switch over to the hardware wallet. And once the history loads, you'll see that I've already received it, 10 XRD. So I'm now storing those 10 XRD. Those 10 XRD are protected by a private key that's stored on this hardware wallet address. I can take this with me. I can take this device. I could connect it to a different Radix wallet on some other computer. All I have to do is make sure I'm protecting this device and the seed free of those, and those funds are completely safe. So this is a good option for using if you've got tokens you're going to be swapping onto the Radix mainnet. You'll just need to do this sideloading process until we can get this ledger placed on the Ledger App Store, and at that point things will become much easier. But until then, I hope this helps give you confidence in storing your tokens on Radix, and hope you enjoy the experience. We're just about to launch mainnet. If you have any questions, go to Discord. We're going to have people there that are going to try to help people if you have any problems with this install process. And there are other smart people there that can help out from the community as well. So thanks very much for your time, and enjoy using the network.